The session was booked as a routine compliance intake. That is what the intake form said. That is what I told myself when I reviewed the file the night before, when I reviewed it again that morning, and when I walked into assessment suite 11 carrying 17 years of professional confidence and a calibration sheet I had never once needed to question. Her name was Marin Solis, 34 years old, human, civilian contract technician, posted to Continuance Station Vethcon on a 6-month survey rotation. She had been referred for compliance mapping as part of the standard cross-species onboarding protocol. Every non-Vithari species above a certain neural complexity threshold required a baseline pain compliance profile before being cleared for certain work environments. It was administrative. It was, in the language of our institute, Category 1, predictable outcome brief session, standard file entry. I had run 1,100 Category 1 sessions in my career. I do not say that to establish authority. I say it because it matters that I was not new to this. I was not misreading equipment. I was not making a junior error. I knew exactly what the SARETH compliance and pain mapping scale produced, how it produced it, and what the numbers meant. The SCPMS had been validated across 382 species. In 1,100 sessions across 14 years at this institute, it had never returned an unclassifiable result. The human sat down in the assessment chair with the relaxed posture of someone waiting for a connecting transport. She was not nervous. Most subjects are nervous. The chair is not alarming by design, low, cushioned, deliberately unthreatening, but the room has an institutional quality that tends to produce a certain careful stillness in new subjects. She looked around it with mild, polite interest, the way a person looks at a room they do not expect to remember. I explained the procedure, ascending tiers of calibrated stimulus, beginning at the threshold of perceptibility and moving upward in measured increments. I told her each tier would last approximately 30 seconds, and that she should indicate clearly if the stimulus became more than she wished to continue. This is standard language. It is designed to be reassuring. She said, "Sure, go ahead," and rested her hands in her lap. Tier 1. The SCPMS delivers a precisely calibrated nociceptive signal, not external, not a physical contact, but a stimulus rooted through the subject's own neurological pathways at a carefully gauged intensity. The biometric feeds confirmed immediately, her nociceptors fired. The signal registered, she felt it. The readout showed normal human pain pathway activation, textbook response, every marker where it should be. She did not move. She did not change expression. She glanced at the display panel on the wall with what I can only describe as mild curiosity. I noted it and advanced to Tier 2. Same result, full nociceptive activation confirmed on 3 independent channels, no behavioral response. She tilted her head slightly and said, "Is the machine running? I can't tell if it started." I told her it had started. We were currently at Tier 2 of 9. She considered this. "It's a little uncomfortable," she said, "like a bruise you keep pressing. Is that what you're looking for?" It was not what I was looking for. What I was looking for, what the instrument had been calibrated to find in 382 species, was behavioral modification. Guarding, postural shift, withdrawal reflex, elevated stress hormone cascades, compliance-seeking behavior. These are the universal outputs of functional pain. They are not optional features of the pain response. They are what pain is for. Pain is an instruction. Every species in our database obeys it. The numbers diverge, the thresholds vary. The physiology differs in a dozen ways, but the behavioral output is the same, because the behavioral output is the evolutionary point. I advanced to Tier 3. The SCPMS recalibrated automatically, assuming the initial readings were sensor artifacts. It does this on its own when the behavioral output does not match the nociceptive input. It is a quality control feature. It has triggered twice in 14 years, both times because of confirmed equipment faults. Tier 3 confirmed, full nociceptive activation. The human was experiencing pain. The instrument was certain of this. She was now asking me whether the station's commissary carried anything with actual flavor, because she had found the standard rations somewhat bland. I called in my senior colleague, Dr. Privith, and a methodology review panel of 2 additional evaluators. I told them I needed independent verification of the readings before I advanced further. They reviewed the biometric feeds. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Dr. Privith asked the human directly how she was feeling. "Fine," she said. "This is a bit like a long shift on a cold deck, noticeable but manageable. Are we nearly done?" We were at Tier 4. Tier 4 is the compliance threshold for the highest tolerance species in our database, a deep-core excavation organism from the Verkai system, heavily armored, neurologically dense, not known for sensitivity. The human was chatting about shift rotations. We advanced to Tier 5, 6, and 7 under panel observation, pausing between each to verify the biometric feeds and rule out equipment failure. The feeds were not failing. The nociceptive signal was present and confirmed at every tier, escalating as designed, registering on every channel, returning clean data. The SCPMS recalibrated a second time at Tier 6 and returned the same answer it had returned the first time. At Tier 8, Marin Sali said, "I don't love this," in a tone that suggested she didn't love it approximately as much as she didn't love a headwind on a cold morning, present, acknowledged, entirely beside the point. At Tier 9, the instrument's maximum, a stimulus level we have never needed to reach in a standard intake session, the SCPMS completed its assessment and returned a result I had not seen in 1100 sessions. The compliance mapping field was blank. Not null, not missing, not a sensor dropout. Blank, with a flag I had to look up in the documentation because I had never seen it triggered in practice. It read, "Behavioral Compliance Response Not LOCATED. Assessment complete. Result classification, pending manual review." I looked at the panel. The panel looked at the readings. Dr. Privith pulled the archive comparison on her secondary display, searching for any prior record of this result pattern across the Institute's full species database. The search returned one result. It was a calibration error log from 9 years ago, since corrected. The human was not a calibration error. 3 instruments, 2 independent evaluators, and 17 years of professional experience agreed on this with the unambiguous certainty of a fact no one particularly wanted. I filed the session under a new classification code, nociceptive dissociation, grade unassigned. The documentation described it as follows: full nociceptive pathway activation confirmed across all measured channels, behavioral compliance response absent at all tested tiers through instrument maximum, pain stimulus received, registered, and acknowledged by subject, behavioral modification response not produced, mechanism not yet understood. Advisory submitted to the Continuance Institute Review Board. Cross-species database amendment pending authorization. Marin Salis left the suite in good health, pausing at the door to ask if she needed to schedule a follow-up or if this cleared her for worksite assignment. I told her I would send confirmation to her unit within the standard administrative window. She thanked me and left. I sat with the session file for a long time after that. The SCPMS had found her pain. It was real. She had said so herself, a bruise you keep pressing, she had called it. Not imaginary, not suppressed. Present, felt, fully mapped on every channel the instrument had. She simply had not done anything about it. Not because she was unusually stoic or performing endurance for an audience. She had been making conversation about commissary rations. She had not found any of it important enough to stop. What the instrument could not file, what I could not file, even now, was what that meant for the thing we had built the instrument to measure. Pain compliance is not a torture protocol. It is not a cruelty. It is the foundational mechanism by which every known species with a complex nervous system can be kept safe in high-risk environments. It is how you tell a worker they are in danger. It is how an employer, A warden, an administrator, a doctor knows when a patient or an employee or a charge has reached a limit that requires intervention. For 382 species, the mechanism works because the behavioral output is guaranteed. Pain instructs and the organism obeys. The compliance is not the cruelty. The compliance is the point. I wrote the advisory. I submitted it. I noted in the supplemental field in careful, precise language, the kind of language that earns its place in a document that will be reviewed by people who were not in that room, that the continuance's current cross-species safety frameworks, exposure protocols, environmental limit calculations, and worksite clearance standards were built on a universal assumption, that the assumption appeared to hold for every species in our database, that it did not appear to hold for this one. I recommended a full review. I did not say what I was actually thinking, because what I was actually thinking was not a clinical finding. It was something closer to the cold, settling recognition that comes when a thing you have counted on turns out to have always been optional, and something, somewhere, simply never bothered to tell you.